Residents of a farmhouse in Mexico are evacuated as a giant expanding sinkhole threatens to swallow up more land. In this week's Top 5. Welcome to Know This. Let's count down and get to the biggest stories you need to know. Starting at number 5, a massive sinkhole has swallowed a farm field in Mexico, and the farmer's home could be next. The crater almost looks like a scene from a sci-fi movie. It started out about 16 feet wide, but in just a couple hours grew considerably. It's measuring 300 feet wide and 65 feet deep, and is filled with muddy water. The sinkhole stunned the farmers when it first opened up over the weekend on this field in the state of Puebla with a thunderous crash. Experts think it's the result of extracting groundwater and the cultivation of the land that softened the soil way too much, and now it's dangerously close to the family's home. They've been evacuated over fears that it could be swallowed up at any moment. At number 4, tennis star Naomi Osaka pulls out of the French Open and will take time away from the sport to prioritize her mental health. On Monday, the 23-year-old, who is the world's number 2 ranked tennis player, dropped out of the tournament after skipping a mandatory post-match press conference. Osaka announced a week ago she would opt out of media interviews because of mental health concerns and was fined for doing so. After a victory in her first match, she decided to withdraw from the tournament completely to avoid becoming a distraction and to focus on her well-being. Osaka shared a statement on social media saying she has anxiety and has struggled with depression since the 2018 U.S. Open and has, quote, had a really hard time coping with that. Various sponsors and athletes have shown support for Osaka's decision. Serena Williams saying, "I wish I could give her a hug. I know what it's like." And tennis legend Martina Navratilova tweeted, "As athletes, we are taught to take care of our body, and perhaps the mental and emotional aspect gets short shrift. Good luck, Naomi. We are all pulling for you." Number 3, the White House is once again acknowledging Pride Month, with President Biden vowing to fight for LGBTQ+ rights. After the Trump administration largely ignored the celebration of gay rights, Biden issued a presidential proclamation recognizing June as Pride Month. Since taking office, the Biden administration has been rolling back Trump-era mandates that discriminate against the transgender community, including prohibiting transgender people from serving in the military. But many state legislatures are going in a different direction, with more than 200 bills that target transgender Americans. On Tuesday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law a bill barring trans female athletes from competing in women's sports. Human Rights Campaign President Alfonso David tells NowThis it's just a desperate measure by LGBTQ+ opponents and said that his organization is fighting back.
They lost in court, they lost at the ballot box, and now they're targeting the most marginalized members of our community, transgender young people, and attempting to restrict their ability to actually participate in sports. They will lose this battle as well.
The Human Rights Campaign plans to sue the state of Florida over the anti-transgender legislation. At number 2, Texas Democrats blocked the passage of a harsh voter suppression bill with a dramatic walkout before the vote.
Based on the tally sheet furnished by the voting clerk, a quorum is apparently not present.
It was a last-ditch effort in Austin to stop Senate Bill 7, known as the Election Integrity Protection Act. The bill included a number of voting hurdles, including mail-in ballot restrictions and limiting Sunday voting, which essentially targets souls to the polls and would disproportionately affect black voters. Opponents argue it's a flat-out Jim Crow-era bill aimed at making it harder for certain Texans to vote. It's unclear if this fight in Texas is over. Governor Greg Abbott has threatened to call lawmakers back for a special session so they can pass this bill. Former Texas Representative Beto O'Rourke calls this effort just the latest in a wave of lawmakers in multiple states trying to chip away at democracy.
If you consider the voter suppression bills that were passed and signed into law in Georgia, in Florida, Iowa, Montana, the voter suppression bills that are pending in more than 40 other state legislatures, you begin to see that we have the single greatest concerted attack against democracy in the modern history of the United States of America.
O'Rourke called on Congress to pass the For the People Act, which would expand voting access at the national level, making it more difficult for certain states to pass laws like this. And at number 1, President Biden visits Tulsa, Oklahoma to mark the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. A century after white mobs killed hundreds of black residents in Greenwood, Tulsa's affluent neighborhood and home to Black Wall Street, President Biden became the first president to visit the area and met with living survivors. The president toured the Greenwood Cultural Center, held private meetings with survivors, and drew attention to the atrocities in Tulsa that are often left out of history lessons.
This was not a riot. This was a massacre, among the worst in our history, but not the only one. And for too long, forgotten by our history. As soon as it happened, there was a clear effort to erase it from our memory. We memorialized what happened here in Tulsa, so it can't be erased. We simply can't bury pain and trauma forever. And at some point, there'll be a reckoning, an inflection point, like we're facing right now as a nation.
During the visit, Biden also announced efforts to reduce racial disparities for Tulsa businesses and homeowners. That's this week's Top 5. What was the biggest story for you? Tell me in the comments below, and be sure to follow our page for more news. We'll see you right back here next time for more news you need to know.